Thank you very much. It means a lot. But boy, it's never easy following myself. This is going to be a tough one. Andy said, sort of told a bit of my story, and I think I just told a bit again, but, this is a visionary award, and I kind of want to share my vision a little bit. You got to know a little bit about me. So it is true. I did grow up in a very conservative environment. I'm sure a lot of us did. Military environment, Mormon household, and that meant, for me at least, that, from about the age of 6, when I knew I was gay, I knew what people would call me if they ever discovered my secret. I knew that I was going to hell. I knew that God did not love me. I knew I was a second-class citizen and that I was less than. And that if anyone did find out my secret, that beyond suffering physical harm, I knew I would bring great shame to myself and to my family. And that leaves me with two choices a lot of us have had in our life. And one is to hide. And that meant for me to go on a Mormon mission, to get married to a Mormon woman in the temple, and to have a small Mormon family of, say, 20 or 30 or 40 kids. Or to do what I thought about constantly, which is to take my own life. And thankfully, there aren't enough pills, fun or otherwise, in a Mormon mother's medicine cabinet. So I pretended and I hid. And sadly, I did cry myself to sleep on more Sabbath nights than I care to remember. But then, like Andy said, somewhere around the summer of 1988, I heard a recording of a speech. And it was delivered 10 years earlier on June 9th, 1978 by Mr. Harvey Milk. And I want to read you a piece of that speech. He said, "Somewhere in Des Moines or San Antonio, there is a young gay person who all of a sudden realizes that she or he is gay, knows that if the parent finds out, they'll be tossed out of the house. The classmates will taunt the child, and the Anita Bryants and the John Briggs are doing their bit on TV, and that child has several options: staying in the closet, suicide. And then one day that child might open up the paper and it says, homosexual elected in San Francisco. And there are two new options. One option is to go to California, like I did. Right. Or to stay in San Antonio and fight. And you've got to elect gay people so that that young child and the thousands upon thousands like that child know there is hope for a better world. There is hope for a better tomorrow." Now, I was 14 years old when I first heard that speech. And that honestly was the first time I knew that someone loved me for me. It was 10 years after his assassination, and Harvey Milk's message gave me life. It did give me hope. But then everyone says, so why are you going to go and spend 5 years writing Milk, right? Why are you going to do that? And everyone in Hollywood is saying, don't do it. You're going to go head-to-head with Warner Brothers. It's a bad career move. You're doing fine. And I said, I got to do it because I'd bring his name up. Even in some groups like this, I'd bring his name up with my gay friends and my activist friends, and they acted like they knew they should know who he was, but they had no clue. And why is that dangerous? Because as the old saying goes, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And that is exactly what the gay and lesbian movement has been doing over the past decade. Because Harvey's message was simple, right? It was to come out, represent yourself, and reach out to other minority groups. And if you look at, like, say, Proposition 8 in California, we didn't have gay people in the ads or the literature, and there was very little effort to reach out and to educate. So to me, it came as little surprise that we lost that fight. And that's why I'm here tonight. It's because, listen, we all know there is no question we are at a critical moment in the gay and lesbian movement. The question is, what will we do with this moment? And let me share what I learned, what I discovered over my 3 years of working on Milk research trips. It wasn't the legend of the man that I learned about as a teenager. What I learned about was a deeply flawed man. A man who grew up closeted, a man who failed in business, he failed in his relationships, and he got a very, very late start. But once he did get started, Harvey Milk was not afraid to ruffle feathers. He was not afraid to agitate. And by agitating, he convinced an entire people to come out, an entire people to reach out to other communities, and then to represent themselves in this fight. And against all odds, his strategy worked. And Harvey Milk won twice on Election Day at the ballot box, twice in a time that was far more homophobic. And you see, His strategy did not start and stop with the gay and lesbian movement. He understood the interconnectedness of all minority groups in this fight for equality. He understood that the LGBT movement is just one piece of a much larger, completely interrelated civil rights struggle. And he didn't just understand it, he felt it. And he worked tirelessly. He worked so hard for any group that was being treated unequally, for the seniors communities, the disabled, the women's movement, the racial minority movements, the religious communities, and all of what he called the us's, because he understood that gay and lesbian civil rights will never be secure until all of our civil rights are secure. And that was perhaps his most important message, was this coalition of the us's, that together we are unbeatable at the ballot box, and I firmly believe that it is time for the gay and lesbian movement to reach out again and work just as hard for our brothers and sisters in other communities as we have for ourselves. It is time for the us's to come back together and start winning these fights for each other again, and that is step one. All right, so this whole step two thing, right? This whole step two thing, I, like probably everyone in here, tuned into the Democratic National Convention last year to see what was on the progressive agenda. And just for a little bit of context, I want to read you something that was said back in 1972 when Jim Foster, an openly gay man, was given a slot in front of the Democratic National Convention, and on television he said this. He said, "We do not come to you pleading your understanding or begging your tolerance. We come to you affirming our pride, affirming the validity to seek and maintain meaningful emotional relationships, and affirming our right to participate in the life of this country on an equal basis with every citizen." That was 36 years ago, and damn brave. And then I tuned in this past year, and I heard, well, not much. I heard Obama stumble over a single sentence about hospital visitation rights. And since then, until about an hour and a half ago, there has been complete silence on DOMA, and to this day, silence on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That doesn't sound like a bold move for civil rights to me. But then there was the Republican National Convention. Sarah Palin, John McCain, and flashy patriotic speeches, right? And did you hear what they had to say about gay and lesbian people in our movement? No. Because they said nothing. They said nothing. And I worry. That really worries me, because I think they have perhaps found a sure way to kill the gay and lesbian movement. They'll just make us disappear. Listen, they did it before. Reagan did it in the 80s with 6 years of silence about the AIDS crisis, because at the time they thought, hey, it's just killing gay people, right? So I'm here to say we must come out. The entire concept of coming out was devised and pushed for by leaders like Harvey Milk to counter this visibility problem. And that means we can't just come out to our friends and family anymore. We can't just come out here in LA and New York and San Francisco where, it's safe to come out. We have to come out to our friends and our family and our coworkers and the people we meet on our trips and urge our brothers and sisters to come out to their friends and their families. Because the truth is, and Harvey knew it, if people don't personally know who they are hurting, they don't mind taking our civil rights away on Election Day. They have to personally know us. Because the problem is 30 years after Harvey Milk gave his life for the LGBT movement, I am still less than a heterosexual when it comes to my civil rights. We all are. And the problem is, the message to the gay and lesbian youth coming out today is that they are still inferior, they are still less than. And that is why these sorts of losses and this kind of silence and losses like Proposition 8 in California aren't just devastating politically and socially, they are far more dangerous, because I feel certain that there was another kid out there in San Antonio tonight who woke up on November 5th, 2008, and heard the gay and lesbian people lost their rights in California, that they are still less than, they are still second-class citizens, and I know all too well the dire solutions that may have flashed through his or her head.